Hello and welcome to the walk-off, everybody. It is the Friday show. I'm Scott Pilford, joined by our interim co-host, the man, the legend, Joel LaFlamme. Hey, Kami, on TikTok. How you doing today, my man?
The man, yes. The legend, no. I'm doing well.
Very much the man. Yeah.
Doing well, doing well.
We have all sorts of stuff to get to in today's show. I'm actually really excited for this episode because we get to talk about so many things that maybe are a little bit off the beaten path here of what we would normally be tackling, which is all Blue Jays stuff. So we are venturing into the Major League Baseball realm, which is always fun. So today on the show, we are going to talk the sweep of the White Sox and the fact that the Jays are officially streaking, buddy. 3 in a row. First time this season. So, yes, we're going to call it a streak. We'll also get into the fact that they are at home against the Pirates. We will talk the City Connects, which were just unveiled last night. And I will say, far better than the leak. Obviously, it was a prototype or something like that, but man, the colors are sharper. The CN Tower doesn't look like shit, which that was the big thing I had a problem with is I looked at the prototype, and of course, no one knew it was a prototype, but you look at it, it literally looked like just a generic tower.
Yeah, the colors were a little like orange in the leak. Um,
Yeah.
this the this seems a little. Is it more matte black?
I feel like that's what it is too, right? And so like which makes the logo pop more with
Yep,
the brighter, deeper blue. I don't
and
know.
the
I was
red.
impressed with it all together, with the
Yes,
hat and the pants and them all in their uniform. It looks really slick.
yeah, and they had a theme for it. They had a night mode, right? So
Yeah.
it seems like this is a jersey. You don't really wear this on a Sunday noon game, right? This is
No.
the night game. This has got a vibe for an evening game. So yeah, I actually made a video on the leak and I was not happy. I did not like it at all. And it's this like fundamentally it's the same thing,
Yeah.
but the
But it's
color just shifts to the where
yeah.
it needs to be, and that's it. And I was just like, no way in hell I would buy it. And then now I'm like,
I
I
know
could be
now I'm
one of
on the
the coolest
fence. I'm
ones in
like,
the league.
I'm gonna wind up owning one of these, aren't I? So we'll dive into that. Dalton Varsho has earned some praise. And that, I
Right.
think, is what we're going to do. We'll talk a little bit of Dalton Varsho, how much he has improved since last season, and even the fact that offense is down so much in 2024, and yet he has still taken a massive step forward, which really, I don't know, numbers-wise, how you would scale that. I'm not a mathematician, but I would say that just the fact that offense is down and his offense is up so much, it's up even more,
Hmm.
right? Like if you were to try and match the numbers with what they were doing last year. But anyways,
Yeah.
we'll dive into that. Bullpen help has arrived. The Blue Jays made a minor trade last night, getting Ryan Burr from the Phillies. So we will talk that a little bit more so what that acquisition means. And Alek Manoah's question mark definitely becomes bigger in this
Yes.
in this whole scenario. The Mets. Oh boy. That organization, man. It's so funny because when Steve Cohen first bought the Mets, Major League Baseball freaked the fuck out, dude. Owners all over Major League Baseball got incredibly nervous. Just the fact that he was so willing to spend money. He was saying all the right things about building another Dodgers, but on the East Coast, right? The Mets being the East Coast Dodgers and spending freely, very similar to what LA has done. And then it just didn't pan out. Really, they've spent a pile of money to accomplish almost nothing, and they are a little bit knee jerky. I know the Jorge Lopez DFAing kind of rubbed people the wrong way, myself as well. And we will dive into the ins and outs of all of that, but it does just feel like scapegoating a little bit for where they're at on the season and just I again, we will dive into it, but sure feel bad for Jorge Lopez, who should have had a translator. Why there wasn't a translator provided? I mean, that's his option. And I know that in New York, there's a lot of pressure on guys to speak English. But what we're seeing happen is why guys who speak English as a second language rely on a translator, just so that what they're saying is exactly what they mean. Otherwise, you wind up with viral videos of a guy being like, I'm on the worst, it's the worst team in baseball, when really what he was trying to say was, I'm the worst teammate in baseball. I don't think that specifically is why he was DFA'd, but we'll dive in. And then finally, and I'm very excited to talk this, my friend, Major League Baseball announced that they are going to be integrating the Negro League stats into the record books.
All together, till all are one, like Transformers, I guess. Yes,
Exactly.
it's a big deal, and for fans of the game who've known it one way their entire lives, it's not the same anymore. Everything has come together. That's a big thing.
And I really think and hope that what this does is create more interest in the Negro Leagues, because I know that Ken Burns' documentary Baseball, which if you are a baseball nerd and have never taken the time to watch Ken Burns' Baseball, I mean, it's dense, right? It's a long watch, but man, the lore and the history that is woven into this documentary is incredible. And it was really the first peak that I had of like in-depth Negro League talk, right? Like they had a full, the way he does it, he has like 9 innings. I think they're up to like 13 innings now,
Yeah,
uh but
they did the
he had
10th.
yeah, exactly. So I think it's like the third inning they really get into the Negro Leagues. And
I believe so. Third and fourth,
yeah.
and they take big chunks, and it's really amazing because it was made in 1994 during the strike season.
Yeah.
So in 94, which is 30 years ago, it's tough to say that. Uh, 30 years ago, but you have 30 years ago, you have these living connections to these leagues. Like Buck O'Neill is still alive and he's
Mhm.
eloquently talking about it, right? So it's just
Mhm.
like, it's this unbelievable documentary that lets you go back. And Ken Burns itself is not specifically about the Negro Leagues, but it is such a important chapter. Jackie Robinson being probably the most important baseball player brought up through the entire documentary, and it's all kind of woven. If you're going to properly tell his tale, you have to tell the tale of the Negro Leagues. So,
Mhm.
yeah, it is an absolutely amazing. And then there's other documentaries on Jackie Robinson, and I
Of
really hope
course.
that this becomes an opportunity for like HBO or somebody to go maybe like make a Rube Foster series and show the Negro Leagues in a series for like five,
Mhm.
6 years and fighting against the white owners that were trying to create rival colored leagues and all the things that were happening back then. It's just an amazing dive back into history, and I really hope that that's what happens with this moment.
I agree 100%, and that was another eye-opening thing is when they actually put the Negro Leagues and show you what they were accomplishing and show you the talent that that league had, and the fact that it really was a parallel track to the all-white league, right? Like it's not like there was a big dip in talent or anything like that, which is the only pushback I'm ever hearing about the integration of these stats is, oh, well, it's a different league. Well, I hate to break it to everyone. The National League and the American League were also very different leagues at the time. So
Mhm.
that's a real straw man argument there. But anyways, we will dive in to that and what it means for baseball and just kind of how cool it is. So before we do that, I will say thank you so very much to everyone who came out to Baseball Town last night. I know, Joel, you've been involved in a live podcast that we put on in Edmonton, which was fantastic. And we've been running them here in Toronto. September was the first one. We had David Schneider and Jay Jackson come down, which was, I mean, absolutely incredible. But last night's show, buddy, was, I mean, for lack of a better term, and I'm a baseball nerd, but it was magic, man. We had like 50 baseball nerds under one roof And there were so many of them that you're interacting with on Twitter or you're interacting with online, and there's not the same connection online. Like, and arguments online tend to feel more heated, but when you're in person and you're just talking, it's not even an argument. You have two different opinions, but you love the team and there's that camaraderie there. But that somehow gets it gets muddied online. So it was really great, man. It was really great. We had Shoa Lee from Jays Talk come down. We had the boys from Blue Jays Today on the panel. We had a roast of the Blue Jays and the Yankees. And dude, it was so good. Speaking of the Negro Leagues, like Angelica Scanura is the comic that was representing the Blue Jays. And she was just like, Jackie Robinson joined the major leagues with the Los Angeles Dodgers. And then 8 years later, 8 years, the New York Yankees wound up having their first black player. And she's like, and you know what? You can't blame him. It was so hard to find athletic young black men in the Bronx at the time. And it was just like such a perfect, like. Anyways, a big thank you to all of our panelists and comedians that were on the show. And a big thanks to everyone who came down and watched the show. We have another one going June 20th. Our panel is going to be Keegan Matheson of MLB.com. It's going to be Scotty Mitchell of TSN, and fingers crossed, we're waiting on her confirmation, but Caitlin McGrath from The Athletic. And if it's not Caitlin, she's already said that if she can't make it work this time, she'll be sometime in the summer. We're doing these monthly. So anyways, I will drop the ticket link for the next one here. Hopefully we can have even more people out. We had almost, I think it was just over 50 this time. It only sits 94. So we were over half full. And the goal is, Joel, by the end of the year, we're going to be packing these things out. It's going to be
I
fun.
can't see why not.
Exactly. All right, my friend, let's get into it. The Pittsburgh Pirates in town to face the Toronto Blue Jays. I don't know what it is about the Pirates, dude. There is some magic behind that organization. That's a team that just has so much history and so much richness, baseball richness within it, that it's really fun to watch this team start to come around, right? Like, they're
Oh, yeah, that's a really good point. Like, I there's something really missing when like you go 30 years of Pirates not being in any way competitive,
relevant at
but
all. Yeah.
exactly, but like you go back to the like We Are Family 1979 team with Willie Stargell and Dave Parker,
Oh, man.
and
The
you
Cobra.
go back,
Yeah.
yeah, you go back to like Roberto Clemente and what he meant to the game, what he meant to Latin American players. You're
The
going all the way
first
back
team
to
also to field an all black lineup.
an all black team. That is correct.
And what's
And
beautiful, they didn't even know when they did it.
yeah,
It
it
had to be
wasn't even
pointed out.
that's what we did. Like yeah, it dates back, to Honus Wagner, right? It dates back to it is a true, call it like an original six franchise for Canadians out there to get an understanding of how important Pittsburgh needs to be. And for them to have those two fireballers in Jared Jones and Paul Skeens is really, this is the moment where it's like shitter get off the pot, right? You've got this is talent. This is
And the
generational talent.
Jays are very lucky in that they miss both Skeens and Jones in this
Yes.
3-game series. So there is an opportunity here for the Jays to continue this little streak that they have going on after beating the White Sox and getting the sweep for the first time of the year, too. First time they've taken a full series, the whole thing. When you look at this Pittsburgh Pirate team, 26-30, one game worse in the records than the Blue Jays. Is this a team the Blue Jays can still make some hay with? Like, this team is obviously on the rise, and they're not a team to overlook by any means. And O'Neill Cruz is healthy and back in that lineup. We're seeing Cabrian Hayes take another step forward. But they've had some struggles as well. When you look at this Blue Jays schedule coming up, and obviously there's a meat grinder in June if you start looking down the road, how important do you think this series is for the
Very
Toronto Blue
important.
Jays?
very like every you have to cut the season in half right now and play an 80 game season
Hmm.
to fight whether you're competitive on the back end, whether you're a buyer or a seller. So you're fighting to be what team are you? Are you a buyer right now or you're a seller? And you have this little underbelly, White Sox, Pittsburgh without Skeens and Jones. That's 6 games that are insanely important to get every single one of because there was a little bit of a slide. We lost a series to Detroit. We had lost a game to Chicago earlier that we shouldn't have lost. And there's losses that are stacking up that you need to counter for. And right now, Pittsburgh is an up and coming team. They're 4 games under 500, but at the same time, we're a team that should be a level beyond that, and we should be able to take it to the teams that we're above. I believe we beat them in the spring training game that I watched. Yeah, I think we beat them 3-1. Not that that matters because Ricky Tiedemann was pitching. Won't be
Yes.
pitching tonight, but it's a situation where you come against these teams, and are you a competitor? Are we going to be legit? Are we going to fight for a wild card? Well, this is where we need to make that statement, and I hope that we're the team also that's trying to, we had the moment with the iPads where we're trying to put the iPads down. We had the moment with the home run jacket coming back, and now we've got the City
There's a little
Connectors.
bit of mojo. There's a little
There's
bit of
yeah,
mojo going on here. I know
right.
that Keegan Matheson had a tweet where he was literally saying exactly that, that after the game on Wednesday in Chicago, that it was the most positive and happy version of the Blue Jays he has seen since last season. He said there was just a different energy amongst the players and the team. And listen, I'm well aware it's the Chicago White Sox. Everyone's going to point out that they're the worst team in baseball. And yes, does that sweep mean much? Probably not until we see how they springboard off of it. But Joel, you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, you got to find some confidence, you know. And every team in this league is a major league team. It's not like you get to go down and dip into the AAA, but technically you do when you go to Chicago. So you got to use those wins. You got to use that uplifting feeling of getting one over on a team, and then hopefully that avalanches into a big, massive snowball that can destroy everything in its path. That's kind of all you're hoping
I mean, the
at this
truth
point.
is, dude, this team needs W's. It doesn't matter how it comes about. That 3-1 win over the White Sox on Wednesday wasn't overly encouraging because offense has been the problem of the year. But I think we're in this spot right now where this team is what it is. This team has been built around pitching, it's been built around defense. And what really needs to happen, if there's going to be any sort of turnaround, is for the bullpen to come together, for the bullpen to actually be the shutdown back end of the rotation thing that it was last year, where you could really shorten a game. The starters could give you 6 or 7, and then, yeah, you're going to go through a meat grinder of Eric Swanson and Jordan Romano and Chad Green at their best. And unfortunately, we just didn't really see that take place this year. And it's concerning. Eric Swanson's in AAA right now, dude.
It has a lot to do with the spring training.
Hmm.
Spring training is such an important thing when you look at Eric Swanson. Um,
It's
uh,
crazy how much more important it is for pitchers than hitters,
yes,
eh?
absolutely. Blake Snell. Blake Snell has been blown up all year, and he's just like, I didn't pitch to a major league batter until like in April. Like
Yeah.
it was insane. I don't know what to tell you, but I was pitching to high school kids. I had no idea who I was as a pitcher, and I didn't know what I had to work on. I didn't know what I had to focus on, and to be able to eliminate your spring training. Chad Green, another example of not really being able to build himself up properly this season. So it's just
I mean,
it's
even Kevin Gosman, right?
yeah,
He mentioned in a press conference. Like he
went to three
made it
starts.
common knowledge that he's just like, yeah, I probably should have been taking some rehab starts instead of rushing myself back to the major leagues. And this is why I have struggled. And we have seen high level Gosman since this, but we also every once in a while will see just him not look himself, him not
Well,
look
yeah,
as sharp as we're used to.
it's like a race car, right? Like you can have a this is the race car that won Daytona last year, but it's like it hasn't taken any laps. And then you take it out on the track and it's not ready and it's not tuned and you go into the wall and you crash. And now you can't finish the race. Right. Like that's kind of the difference is that is you think, hey, well, these guys can just have their rehab starts up in the majors. And you're like, if you go 1 1/3, you ruin your entire week. That crash up here devastates what happens to your bullpen. Then there's a ripple effect through the entire team. That's literally what rehab starts are for,
Mm-hmm.
because it's in front of
Mm-hmm.
2,000 fans in front of in a different league where this can happen. And we can fix things on the mound. Hey, yeah, you know what? We're not going to take you out after 1 1/3. We're going to work on some stuff because we can actually have that blow up happen down here.
Yeah.
So it's like there's a lot of reasons why rehab starts are so important, and you don't want to be getting up to speed
In
here
early May. No.
in Major League Baseball. You
Yeah.
can't just catch up to people who are already redlining their engines, right? These guys are all tuned and ready to go, and you're like, oh, I'll just jump on the track with everybody. No, you're in the wall. That's what's going to happen.
What did
And
you
then you go
think
back.
about what did you think about the demotion of Eric Swanson? It took me a little bit by surprise because he is such an established bullpen piece in this league, and he was so instrumental at the back end of the pen last year. And even when he was with Seattle, he was incredibly instrumental as a high leverage guy. And we are well aware of the mental turmoil that he has had to deal with at the beginning of the season, with the scare with his son and his kid being in hospital. And I mean, kids are resilient, and so glad Toby Swanson is back up and running around and being a kid again. But that has to take a toll. And then on top of it, the injury that he had in spring training where he was shut down and also not given that ramp up. I know Jordan Romano kind of doing the same thing. I guess my question for you is this might actually be the best thing for him. Even though this has got to be a little bit of a blow to the confidence, but he's going to be out of sight, out of mind. He's going to go down 2 hours to Buffalo, you know?
Oh yeah, it's perfect situation. You know,
Yeah.
you know that
So
drive.
he'll be back, right? Like
Oh yeah.
this is still a guy that's obviously integral to this pen. They just
Oh,
need
I
him
don't.
to get right.
That's James Karinchak for the Cleveland last year. It's this isn't.
Great
He'll be
example.
back. He'll be back very very shortly. And it's literally I'm just looking at this as spring training. He can go down there and he can do all the routines that he needs to do. He can be brought in situations that we would probably want to see him in up here. Up here, he would get low leverage middle innings, which is not what we want him for. We want him ready for high leverage late innings.
Hmm.
He can go down into the minors pitch high leverage late innings. He can come in and close a game there. They can put him in those situations which are much more akin to what he wants to be, where he wants to be. And it's not, he blows the save down in the minors. It's a very different thing than blowing the save up in the majors. So I feel like he can be put in the position that he needs to be in, get himself where he needs to be, and he'll probably be back within 2 weeks. Give him 4 or 5 different.
Yeah. That's the
You know,
that's the that's the minimum. So when a guy gets sent down, there's 15 days before you can bring him back up. And my guess is after those 15 days are up, we see Eric Swanson right back in this pen.
yeah, it's 5. He'll get 5 shots on the mound there. He'll get that should be plenty enough. 5 6 innings
Mhm.
is be plenty, and I feel like it's fastball splitter and
Yeah.
slider. We all know what that slider can do. That slider can back up, and the judge can hit it 480 feet, right? So it's just that classic. He's really a 2 pitch pitcher who can occasionally throw in a slider to give you a different look. But I think that we've seen that slider become an option for him, and I don't really think that it is at least right now, a legitimate third pitch for him to use alongside that fastball.
Agreed. And I mean, baseball's all confidence. It's all a
Mhm.
head game. It is wild the mental gymnastics that baseball players need to go through just to stay right. Because it's without a doubt in my mind the streakiest sport that you could possibly play. right? Like we're talking about guys who are either hot or cold. It's so rare. There's no such thing as consistent. It's just consistency in baseball is the hot streaks being a little longer than everyone else, but not even much. Look at Alex Bregman. Alex Bregman is on fire right now. The last 7 games of baseball that Bregman has played, he has looked like the World Series MVP that everyone talks about. But man, did he ever struggle for the first 5 weeks of the season. And this is a guy you don't think would go into struggles like he went through, especially on a walk year. So in a sport where literally these streaks, you're just trying to mentally do these like, I'm okay, it's going to be fine. Don't fall into the quicksand. Don't dig yourself deeper, right? And that kind of feels like where the Jays are at a little bit, right? Like with the offense struggling so much, it does seem almost like quicksand. Like, you know, you're in it and then you're like, oh God, I got to get out. And the more you move and the more you shake, you know, I know this is just a Keanu Reeves replacement kind of spiel here, but that's the truth. And confidence with Eric Swanson will go a long way.
They're talking about their fears in the huddle. Yeah,
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 they're
man, that
yeah.
quickstand's scary,
Snakes.
man.
Snakes. I'm scared of snakes. He's like, not really what I mean.
Yeah, quickstand. Yeah, that's scary too. No, you don't get what I'm talking about. Replacements, that's a great one. No, yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. And like for Major League Baseball's the one. If you put up a shot in basketball that's going for the middle of the hoop and it's going to go right through, right? That's the way. There's no goaltending. It's going to go right through. Um, in the NHL, you got a wide open net. You're going to put it in there, right? In Major League Baseball, you can barrel up a ball 108 miles an hour. It goes right into the glove. You
Yeah.
can do everything right. You can do everything so perfectly right in this game and get a big old zero for it. You can come up as a pitcher and you can throw a 2-seamer 3 inches off the plate inside, and a guy jumps all over it, gets his hands out in front, and hits a 300, 440-foot homer, right? So it's really a game where, and those things get to you. You'll do everything right and fail. And then that gets in your head. And you're like, do I have to do something different? You're like, no, you did everything right. This is the game where you can do everything right and fail. So it's like the streak. It is, of course, the most streaky game. It is absolutely by far the streakiest sport there is, and you can't ever beat. You're never as good as the streak says you are, and you're never as bad as the streak says you are. Right?
100%. 100%. There's always that middle ground.
Yeah.
So I know the talk around Toronto and basically Canada last night was the big unveiling of the Toronto Blue Jays City Connect. And I mean, this is something that had been leaked a few days earlier and looked like shit. I'll be honest, man. When that picture first came out of the City Connects, and I know I'm not alone on this, there's a lot of the grounds crew who commented the exact same thing.
I did
But what
content
was
on it.
yeah. But what we talked it right off the top of the show, but what was your take on seeing the actual jersey? Because it is far superior to what we saw in that league.
I think it's pretty great.
Yeah, me
Like
too.
I've gone from literally saying that it was down in the bottom 5 to now saying it's in the top 5. It's really strange, and that's color. That's color, and
Yeah.
it's like I saw a jersey that didn't pop. I didn't feel a Canadian element to it. It was orange. It
Hmm.
just wasn't.
The
Just
yellow
didn't feel right.
swoosh,
Yeah,
now it's red, and
yeah. Now
it
it's
pops.
yes, it does. It's cool. It's slick. It's might be the best black jersey there is. It might. I think it's really in the top 5, and I have to probably make a video after that where I pull my foot out of my mouth and
Yeah.
say I shouldn't have judged this thing in advance, right? Like that Oakland A's announcer yesterday with Mason Miller and Siri at the plate, where she's like, "Siri, it's not your night, home run," and it's
Yeah.
like I don't know if you
Yeah.
saw that. It's
Yeah.
it's kind of that foot in your mouth situation where you know the leak. We all felt like the leak was it. but it
Yeah.
wasn't. And it was so subtly different. And the subtlety of that difference made it something that I'm really excited to see the boys in, see how that looks.
Yeah, and the game debut of the jersey is tonight. City Connect jerseys will go with black pants and a matte helmet. They'll be worn 15 times this year, starting tonight against the Pirates. So already in the Jays shop, I know that it opened at 8 a.m. today, and there was a huge line. They had Jose Batista and Edwin Encarnacion down there signing autographs and made a big thing of it. And my God, man, the love I still have for Edwin and Jose, like it's just they will for man, like fuck that team should have won a World Series. Like that 2015 team, like I still think about that game 6 with Dalton Pompey on third base with no outs, down by 1, and they couldn't get him in. It just kills me, dude.
That team just,
uh,
yeah. We were a ragtag group. Nobody expected that out of those guys. And then for them to just all become such juggernauts, Russell Martin.
yeah.
Like when you had this Canadian catcher behind the plate that was like, it felt like we had a captain. It felt like we had leadership. It felt like we were a fun-loving team that had attitude they couldn't fuck with.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I really think that team was given, obviously you're pulling together a veteran team, right? It's not like you'd be able to build core players out of 25-year-olds. These were all 31, 32, 34-year-old guys who were just like found something late in their career. Josh was obviously a little bit younger, but yeah, I miss those days. I miss that team.
City Connects debuting
Mm.
tonight on the Players. Let's talk some Dalton Varsho,
Yeah.
because this is a dude who has earned the admiration of Toronto Blue Jays fans who maybe were a little cold on him last year just because he underperformed, new to the city. He was taking the place of beloved players in Lourdes Gurriel Jr. and Gabriel Moreno. And I know that the upside of Moreno still is so impressive and really frustrating to think that he's gone. But that's not Dalton Varsho's fault, right?
Mhm.
You can't decide who's going the other way in a trade when you're moved somewhere. And he has really in 2024 done everything that you could possibly hope out of this guy. So let's start with this, Joel. Okay, this is some stats on the offense. So offense this year in 2024 way down. League average is a 240 batting average, a 311 on base percentage, a 388 slug, which by the way is the first time slugging has been under 400 in an average for since the dead ball era, pretty much. Uh, and then the average OPS 699. So just to put
Starts
that
with
in
this.
perspective, um, that means that an 800 OPS in 2023 is now a 761.
Mhm.
ERA down from 4.33, that was the average, to a 3.97. Just think about that for a second. All the baseball fans that just took that stat in. Okay. Your average pitcher is pitching under a 4 ERA. That's lunacy.
Mhm.
That's lunacy.
It
Literally
really
2 years ago, dude. 2 years ago, give me a guy with a 4 ERA. He's the number 4 in literally every rotation, probably a lot of number 3s.
Yeah, no, it is it's wild. Like I went through this roller coaster. Obviously the conversation here is Dalton Varsho, but the
Mm-hmm.
the the big roller coaster of like 2021 is we were here at this point in the season in 2021. Okay. The reason why was foreign substance that got taken away. The league instantly rebounded to where the averages should be. We started to see a little bit of foreign substance, like Ronald Blanco got called out for it.
Mm-hmm.
I've always thought, I'm like, is it going to find its way back into the game situationally instead of putting a
Ronald,
big gob? Do you just put a little bit and like, do you max out 2 or 3 pitches an inning instead of 12? Right?
I
Is it a
mean,
situational thing?
I just think they're still using it and they're not cracking down. I mean, Blanco got called out for it and was suspended, and the umpire's actual quote afterwards at the presser was, "That was the stickiest hand I've ever felt." Think about that.
Yeah.
This is after a sticky stuff scandal. This is after supposedly 65% of pitchers were loading the ball up. And
Yeah.
in 2024, this umpire finds the stickiest hand he's ever encountered. It's
It
still
should be
out
in,
there, man. It's still
it's in
out
the
there.
glove. It was in, and a lot of people were like, oh, it was rosin and stuff in the, it's in the glove.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be in the glove. You're not allowed to bring it out there. There's a bag of rosin and you have sweat coming off of your body. You're allowed to combine that sweat. And maybe, you know what? You want to add a little bit of sweat, put on some sunscreen, put
Yeah.
on a little extra sunscreen. You're allowed to put on sunscreen. That is all.
Yeah.
Not something in your glove, right? Not something somewhere else. Not something in the first baseman's glove. So when you throw a pitch, oh, there's a runner on first. I'm going to check them. Oh, now the ball comes back and it's oblong because it's got a big load of poop on the side of it. Like
Yeah,
there's
but
ways to bring up the ball.
Astros fans, the mental gymnastics that Astro fans do to tell you that well, it wasn't really that bad of cheating. Don't you worry about how bad of cheating it was. It was barely
Framber
cheating.
wasn't doing it in the World Series for multiple years, and Luis Garcia wasn't loading up through his hair in the World Series against the Braves. I'm like, I've got.
Yeah.
We thought they stopped cheating when the thing scandal broke. It's like they've been cheating ever since. They cheat. They love to cheat. They didn't take the World Series away, so why stop? They didn't penalize any of the players. All they did was punish front office, and that's fine. You get new front office. You're not punishing the players. But
So
Dalton,
all of this to say, exactly. All of this to say that Dalton Varsho's 72-point increase in his OPS from last year to this year is even more impressive when
oh,
you
like
put
100.
in, yeah, yeah, it really is. And again, we're not accountants or mathematicians, so I'm not exactly sure how the scaling of that works. But when you watch offense drop like it did from last year to this year, and you watch a guy increase like he has in Dalton Varsho, it's even more, right? You got to give him a few extra points there. And I think 100 plus OPS is exactly what
Yeah,
Dalton
and
Varsho has accomplished here.
we talk about cold like receptions. I gave him the coldest reception all
Yeah.
year, all year. No one was colder to this guy I've never been colder to a Blue Jay ever, and it has a lot to do with the trade. It had a
Mhm.
lot to do with the trade and what was going out, what was coming in. And you're 100% right. You can't judge the player for that. He has absolutely no control over that. So with all of that removed this season, which I'm very pleased that he was able to go and address his issues. His
Yeah.
issues in the offseason were getting on top of fastballs, getting on top of fastballs. And now I see 95 and 94 being thrown in certain spots that he wasn't able to get on top of last year. And now he's driving that ball. He's a dead pull hitter. If you're a dead
Mhm.
pull hitter and you can't hit the fastball, something's wrong. That can't exist. So if you're going to be dead pull, you got to be able to jump on gas. And he definitely does that a lot more. He's leading the team in home runs. His RBI totals are, I think he's half the RBI totals that he had last season. It's
He's hitting the ball for power again, too. That's another thing. He's at 9 home runs. He leads this team in dingers and is on pace for right around 26 home runs, which would be on par with what the Jays went and got him from Arizona with, right? He had 27 as a Diamondback,
on pace to save 40 runs in the outfield.
which is like, I know that defense isn't as quantifiable, and baseball has done their best to try and put a number to it. You know, it does get lost in translation a little bit, but my God, what Dalton Varsho does in the outfield, I think it's safe to say he's the best defensive outfielder in baseball. There may be a few arguments out there, but I mean, the wheels on the kid is incredible. The fearlessness, dude. Like there's something to be said for a guy who will go all out and knows the dimensions of his ballpark well enough to do some of the stuff Dalton Varsho does.
So I probably shouldn't bring this up. I think Frank would get mad at me for bringing it up, but I'm going to. When I think of pull side fielding, when I think of moving your fielder to cover the pull side hitter, I think of Varsho because Varsho plays center so well, he plays left so well, and I have no doubt in my mind that he'd be able to react to the ball in right field really, really well. But I think that if you were to look at him as shifting him in front of the pull side, if the hitter is right-handed pulling to him, the majority of balls will go to him. But if it's left-handed, I'm shifting him over into right field and I'm putting as many balls into his glove as I possibly can. And I'm trying to make him save 60 runs, because I think that there's actually, even if you were to put him in front of the highest person, you're just constantly moving him to where that ball goes off the batter. He's going to
Yeah.
make even more catches and his value could go up even more. So I've always thought about that full side fielding, and I'm like, he would be the greatest guy to take advantage of that. And then even take a little bit more off of Springer, right? Springer doesn't have to do those diving catches and worry about, because on top of Varsho's ability to play, he can run into a wall and pop right back up. He's in that like rubber phase of his career
Yeah.
where he runs into things, pops right back up, and you didn't even notice. He's a catcher. He's got that catcher toughness to him. So.
Well, and there's something to be said, I think too, for his body type, because he is a little bit shorter. He's stocky. He's just got that linebacker kind of look to him. And I
5'10",
mean,
210.
yeah,
Like
like he's a solid boy,
he's a
right?
football
And I
player.
mean,
That's a
you,
football
you
player.
look at you look at a guy like Aaron Judge is a good example of a dude
Mm.
who winds up getting injured sometimes when he's out in the
It's his
outfield.
toe. Bumps
It's
his
it,
toe.
it's
You're out for
just
the
like
season.
he's just such a big guy, right? Like
Yeah.
he's just such a big guy. And Dalton Varsho just has a little bit more body awareness of where he is on the field and where the wall is and stuff like that. Just an incredible outfielder. Absolutely incredible. So yeah, there's our love for Dalton Varsho. Excited to see where he winds up numbers wise by the end of the year. I would sure love to see him right around that Arizona highs that he had, and he's on pace. He's on pace.
If he can hit 250, he can hit
Yeah,
250. All those other numbers are going to
yeah.
be bat to ball contact. If he can do that, then he'll hit for power.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Okay, so the next topic, we're not going to spend much time on it. Very, very minor move. The Blue Jays did make a transaction last night, going out and getting Ryan Burr, which is a
Hmm.
bullpen piece out of the Phillies system. This is a dude with a .8 career wins above replacement, 4 wins, 3 losses, a 4 ERA. Real mid of the road guy. Was in the minor leagues. He's depth. And the only reason I'm really bringing this up is it does make me wonder about Alek Manoah. And I did want to just bounce that off you real quick here, Joel. This team is up against the wall when it comes to wins and losses. To have even a guy as volatile and inconsistent as Alek Manoah has been, there's not a lot of starting pitching depth on this team right now, man.
Yep.
Yariel Rodriguez is down in Buffalo right now, rehabbing.
Oh,
He's probably, according to Keegan Matheson of MLB.com, he's still a week or two away from getting the call up. Bowden Francis very well could be ready by the weekend, and that's even touch and go. So I think this acquisition of Ryan Burr is just they need arms, which is another red mark against this Atkins front office, in my opinion. Like, I know you can't plan for injuries, but it's not like this team has been hit hard with starting pitching injuries, dude. It's one guy. And
I have Rachel Luba's number. Should we just call Trevor right now?
I don't know, man. It is a worrisome situation. Do you think Alek Manoah, if he goes down, this is just a scramble mode until Yariel's ready, right?
Yeah.
Bullpen
Yeah.
days.
Bullpen days. Yeah. Unless there's
Mitch White was
Zach
DFA'd
Greinke.
by the Brewers.
There you go. Zach Greinke needs like a few more strikeouts for 3,000.
Yeah.
You could go out and get a should be Hall of Famer, and you'd have a milestone there that you'd be able to, hey, and his 3,000 strikeout would always be in a Blue Jays jersey.
Give
If
IKF
he
a
can,
start.
Sure, why not? But it's so scary because we have such a rotation, but that rotation isn't backed by it would be so much different if Ricky Tiedemann was there ready.
Mhm.
This is now the time, 2024, where we're like, 2 years ago, last year, now we could use you.
Well,
Now, if you were healthy,
they bet heavy. They bet heavy on internal options, and
Mhm.
I think you summed it up well with Ricky Tiedemann was that number one guy, and I think they truly did expect him to contribute to this big league team in a significant fashion over 2024, and he just hasn't been able to stay on the field. I think that they had the idea that 22-year-old Chad Dallas, who won Pitcher of the Year within the organization in 2023 and made his start in AAA this year, was going to be a viable option. And I love Cheese. Okay, that's Chad Dallas's nickname is Cheese, but 22 years old, and to put that kind of pressure on a guy, I mean, he's sitting around a 6 ERA right now in AAA and has had to adjust. This is what young pitchers constantly go through. They get they get called up to the next level after dominating, and then all of a sudden the guys are just their prowess at hitting breaking balls is better. And that's where Chad Dallas was killing it in AA, is that he had a good breaking ball that could hit his spots. Well, guess what? That's not good enough in AAA, and now he needs to readjust. And so they were hoping that they could piggyback off of this Chad Dallas top pitcher in the organization thing and maybe get some innings out of him in the big league level this year, and that's not happening. So now where are they at? They've got
Well,
Paolo Espinino on the 40-man, 37-year-old journeyman. He's our Casey Lawrence this year, and I think that's probably the most viable option if we need a guy.
yeah. It's funny because like my mind can't help but go to the training facilities, the super top of the line, greatest training facilities in the history of the game. And I'm like, where's an old guy who can tell you how to throw the ball for you?
Mhm.
Where's the guy who says, I don't care about the slow-mo camera. I don't care that the sweeper is taking over the league. I don't care about I don't care about your velo. I don't care about that. I care about you consistently hitting your spots with pitches that you know that you can control. Who are you? Like I feel like with the Nate Pearson situation, the Ricky Tiedemann situation, you've you've promised that our ability to build players through what we've spent our money on, this will only pay off in player development. I ain't seeing it. I am not seeing it. I'm not seeing it through technology. Go get Ron Washington. Go get me a guy who is going to be old school with these guys, who's been through it. I think that is endlessly more valuable than a bunch of technology that you're trying to apply to everyone. A standard, and
Mhm.
I want 96 miles an hour. I want 2,400 RPM spin.
And it's
David
just
Fletcher's
not
throwing
one
knuckleballs
size
in
it's
Atlanta.
not it's not one size fits all, and
No.
that is really what this technology has on some teams been used to do, right? Is try and have a standard.
Oh, math is the answer to everyone, as opposed to getting to know everyone and finding out what the answer is to them.
Mhm.
Right? I feel like we're if this consistently happens for another year or so, I will feel like that the architecture and the top of the line stuff in Florida was a waste, and
Yeah.
that wasn't. We're looking at things. We're trying to reinvent the game when there are ways of doing these things that have been tried, tested, and true. And the idea that everyone needs to have the same batting stance, everybody needs to have the same mechanics. No, this is a very individualized game, and success comes from the talent that the individual possesses. And how do you bring that out of the individual instead of trying to put a mass way of doing things upon a group?
And I mean, I know I've brought this up a few times since we were very lucky to sit down with Eric Gagne, which, by the way, if you're listening to this, that interview is out right now. Please check it out if you're a baseball fan, because the things that he is saying about pitching in there is just so intellectual and so um, tied in to the way baseball has gone. And he kind of goes on a bit of a tirade on where athletes are at this point in baseball, and that they don't really know their bodies. And that the biggest reason for that, in his opinion, and he straight up says he loves analytics and that he is a big fan of all information that you can get. But he says that the biggest problem that these analytics have started to do is it's like if you cheat in high school. Okay. You get the right answers for the test. You know the answers. You get the grade. But now if you need to show your work afterwards, you're really hooped. Because, yeah, you know that 3 plus 3 is 6. Obviously, this isn't high school math, but these are my examples, all right? You know that 3 plus 3 is 6. But if you don't know why, that is going to be a problem later on. And that's where a lot of ball players are getting all wrapped up in these numbers and the velo and what pitches to throw where and when to throw what, and
Exit velo off the bat.
not understanding the why behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that one of the things he said is he just knew his body very well. He knew when he could ramp up and throw 101. He knew when he should just be throwing 95 and rely on his breaking ball. He knew his body, and not every pitcher these days do, because they're being fed all these analytics from a young age and not learning the why behind it.
Well, it's every hitter is striving to see exit velo in the batting cage. They look and they're like 105, 106, 110. Okay, but then when you're up against a pitcher and he throws a changeup, you're throwing the bat in the stands and you're missing by a mile, right? It's just like you see a guy like, I always go back to Luis Ariz, and he is Major League Baseball's town bicycle, and he's being passed around from team to team. Everybody gets the batting champion. Everybody gets a year with the batting champion. Where that's a guy who's spit in the face of everybody who's telling him to jack up for exit. He hits the ball 86 miles an hour off the bat. He's going to win his 3rd straight batting title this year.
Yeah.
Unless Ohtani bats 3-7. But it's somebody who's not going to, you can come in and be like, do you want to hit more homers? Like, get the fuck out of here. This is how I succeed. I succeed by bat to ball, and my swing is very hands. It is not super load up, get everything into it so that when I make contact, it comes off the bat at 110.
But you need to know yourself to be able to do that, right?
That's what I'm saying, is that's a guy who knows his body and what he is at 26.
Yeah.
By the way,
it's hard to do. It's hard to do, right? Because you got to fight against the team's philosophy a little bit. Mad respect to Danny Jansen, who has done the same thing with the Blue Jays, who are trying so hard to get him to spread the ball all over the field, right? And Danny just finally hit a point where he was like, I'm a pull hitter. I'm sorry. That's what I'm going to do. And if you have a problem with it, you'll need to deal with getting rid of me, obviously. And it has done nothing but work for him. Davis Schneider is another great example of a guy who knows his body, knows what he wants to do. Yeah.
Batista's a guy who was told one thing in Pittsburgh his entire life. This is the opposite. This is the opposite situation. A guy who was told, you're smaller, you're not a slugger, you're an average sized guy, you're not going to hit 50 bombs. We want you slapping the ball all over the place. Comes to Toronto. What do you want to do? Who are you? I think I'm a home run hitter. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to have to hit the fastball if you're going to be a home run hitter. So we got to find a way to get your mechanics out in front of the fastball. We'll teach you a leg kick. Oh, that leg kick gets me going slower sooner. I go slow sooner, but I'm in the right position I need to be in to engage my hips and fire. So it's just like given that tool six consecutive all-star games, right? And it's what was that? It was him finding out who he was at 30. And that's a thing that I think coaches are tremendously missing out on is who are these players? You've got Tim Wakefield who's failing at first base. Well, guess what? He's a knuckleballer. How do you figure that out? You ask him, you go, anything else you can do? I can throw a knuckleball. Well, let's try that out. Right? It's those types of things you may find out a player is just completely different by opening up to who they really, really are as a baseball player. That's a tremendous skill that's lacking. Everybody with the same stance, everybody with the same load, And you're like, well, look at Bo. Bo's dad taught him that. Bo taught him a two-strike approach. He
Mm-hmm.
leads the league in hitting the ball at the opposite field. Is
Yeah.
that a standard Major League Baseball approach? Did that come from Dante? Right? Like,
And that's where we're at.
yeah,
On to the Mets, though, as we're getting a little long in the teeth here, and we definitely have a couple topics that we're going to dive deep into here. So let's talk Jorge Lopez and the debacle that went down a couple days ago. And basically, if you missed it, well, look it up because you're going to hear all about it. I mean, this is making its rounds around Major League Baseball. And basically, it's a Spanish player who was speaking English in one of his most frustrated moments in baseball. Okay. And yes, there are things, by the way, that everyone is finding out now. Like he's got a very ill child that he's dealing with, and there's life stuff that Jorge Lopez is going through. He got into it with the third base umpire over a call, wound up flipping out, throwing his gloves into the crowd. The press asked him about it. He said he was very frustrated and then made a comment basically, I'm playing on the worst MLB team. He was saying he's the worst MLB teammate. This quote got blowing up, obviously, goes viral. They go back and double check with him. He's still confused on it, says something along the lines of, I don't regret my actions of throwing the glove, which, I mean, guys screw up all the time. Okay. Like I, I'm not necessarily defending Jorge Lopez's action of flipping out, but I mean, as a Toronto Blue Jays fan, we watched Chris Bassett literally destroy an iPad. Okay. Like this is not, remember Steven Matz going into the dugout there and beating the shit out of that thing of
we
water bottles. Like this happens.
we watch
Pitchers,
basketball players flip out over a basketball player that's 2 points in a 120-point game. And then we get and then a pitcher who gives up multiple runs, which is massive. This is a huge deal. A reliever coming in and giving multiple runs up, blowing saves. You lost the game. That is like the peak. You come in for a specific amount of time, a very limited amount of time, but the entire game is on your shoulder. And
yeah,
then you blow it. And then you're like, I'm a terrible teammate. I ruined this for everybody. And it get construed as I hate my team,
yeah.
you know, and I
It's a
know how
bummer, man.
passionate
It's
we
really
get.
too bad. Like I really do feel for Jorge Lopez in this whole scenario.
I just don't like why can't players I don't think that if you would have pulled the entire Mets locker room, that they were like, oh, Jorge doesn't have to go. We understand what he was saying.
Yeah.
He's really pissed off. He had a bad start. I'd have been emotional too. Right?
Yeah.
It's just like I don't know what we expect as an audience. I don't know
Yeah.
what reporters expect as an audience to go up to somebody. Your us as fans get so passionate about this stuff that we'll flip. We'll toss stuff. We'll get insanely mad, right? You interview us and we'll say, get that fucker off the team. I
Yeah.
hate this son of a bitch. You know, it's like, fuck that piece of son. Like,
Yeah.
I hate him. I want him dead. Right. And they're like, they say something that is in the moment, full of passion, and their jobs are over nowadays. What is this? What is this shit? We
Mhm.
can't say something that really didn't hurt anybody's feelings at all, and your shit can.
I
Are we
mean,
that soft as a
honestly,
culture?
I think this has far more to do with the Mets as an organization than
Oh sure, yeah.
baseball in general. I mean, the Mets are a mess this year. The Mets have been a mess for a few years now. Steve Cohen took over as the ownership group, and Mets fans got incredibly excited. And why wouldn't you? You have this multi-billionaire come in and basically say, "I'm going to spend like the Dodgers. We're going to turn this into the East Coast LA team. This is going to be a team that has the best farm system. It's going to be a team with the best players on the major league org. This is going to be a championship franchise." Yeah, if I'm a Mets fan, I'm going, Yahoo, Steve Cohen, let's go. But 4 years after him buying the team, and the Mets are as lowly as they've ever been, but now they're the highest paid team in all of baseball. So I think that there is a little bit more frustration and a little bit more scapegoating going on with throwing Jorge Lopez under the bus like this. Was it deserved? You know what? A team can DFA a guy for any reason they want.
Mhm.
I actually don't hold that against them. If that's, I know that was the thing they came out and they said that we have standards. It's like, oh, okay, do you? New York Mets, you have standards? Okay, glad this is where you're drawing the line in the sand. But that said, Jorge Lopez has struggled, obviously, and has not performed to where he or the Mets want. And this is what has played out. It sure leaves a bitter taste in the mouth, though, when you look at how it all played out. You know,
Mhm.
I don't think the players on the Mets enjoy it. I don't think that Jorge Lopez is pleased with how it went down. And if you're the Mets PR, you've got to be like hands in your face, just being like, how does this keep happening to us? Like,
Yes, and Jorge Lopez was an all-star caliber
with
pitcher just 2
with
years ago,
Baltimore, and they loved
right?
him. They loved him. This is
Right?
the thing. So many teammates came out after this and was like, he's the nicest guy around.
Yeah, I
Guys have
I
bad
go pick him
days.
up. I go pick
Like
him
guys
up.
have bad days. It's just it's
Did he get
again.
picked up? Is he still out there to be
He's still
grabbed?
out there right now. I mean, truthfully, we just talked for 20 minutes about the lack of depth, pitching depth on this Blue Jays team. I mean, I
He was closing for the Orioles 2 years ago.
yeah, yeah,
Why not? There's Latin players on here on this team. He can
yeah,
find a connection. He can hang out with Genesis Cabrera. I don't know.
yeah.
I can't see why
Let him
not.
and let him and Jimmy brew up a
And
friendship
Garcia,
here. You
exactly.
know?
Yeah, it's why not? Like I can't see why if Major League Baseball as the players are like, no, that guy's not an asshole.
Yeah.
That guy's not a don't put him as a locker room cancer because of that interview,
And that's the
right?
biggest problem I have with this whole thing. And this is why I'm like, yeah, no wonders guys who speak English as a second language constantly opt for the translator. It's because of moments like this, because once you have that tag, right? Once you have that moniker of clubhouse cancer, of bad teammate, of attitude problem, it doesn't go away, right? It doesn't go away. Fans constantly, because they could care less, right? There's a lot of fans out there that don't care about, it's another organization. So you hear the peripherals around it and you're like, Jorge Lopez, we don't want him. He's a problem. And it's a bummer.
Yeah.
I don't even blame the fans. It's just like the way the Mets handled it. That's just a problem Lopez is going to have for the rest of his career now. He's going
Yeah.
to be labeled this guy. So,
He's been branded now.
yeah. Okay, let's speak some more positivity here before we wrap things up here, and I am excited for the final topic of the show, which is Major League Baseball has integrated Negro League stats into the into baseball, into the Hall of
Yeah.
Fame, into everything. It's
Yeah.
absolutely about time and very exciting in my opinion.
Mhm. I think so. Yeah. It is a wild moment because I heard that what was his name? David Thorne, I believe, was ahead of the committee that kind of put this together over the last 3 years. And they'd gone down and they'd statistically kind of tried to rebuild the Negro League statistics as best they could to try to establish these stats. And yeah, it's a really monumental shift in the game, right? You go to sleep one night, Babe Ruth leads about 10 categories, then you wake up the next day and it's Josh Gibson leading those
Yeah.
categories. So yeah, it really is a banner day for the game. And yeah, I know like you had brought up Ken Burns and my love of the Negro Leagues, especially Rube Foster, the guy who founded
Mhm.
it, who was literally trying to found a league to stand opposed to Major League Baseball, but be its equal. And I feel like this is kind of the date. This is the moment where posthumously that moment has finally happened that the Negro Leagues is being considered completely equal, and all of that baseball that happened is being put on the same level of talent and same level of importance as the majors. So
And
I
as
think
it
that that's
should
really
be.
cool.
And this is one thing for everyone to keep in mind and remember as well is it's not like this is a league that happened as competition because that's the way that they wanted it to go. They were just not allowed to play baseball in any other form. It was
Mhm.
a segregated state at the time. It was uh, a very culturally significant moment when the Negro
I I
Leagues.
think I think I still think Jackie Robinson coming over from the Negro Leagues and fully integrating baseball is the most important moment in sport, period.
Mhm.
I don't know a more important moment. I don't care about any championship win or this happening or that happening. Jackie Robinson coming and integrating Major League Baseball is the most important thing. And the league that suffered because of this was the Negro Leagues, which had built itself up to
And
its kind of a
that's another thing that doesn't really get talked about much is baseball gets heralded as, oh, they made the right decision and they finally did this. But the really sad thing about the color barrier being broken with Major League Baseball is it was far more of an economic decision than it
yes.
was, we're doing the right thing. It's that the Negro Leagues were making a pile of money in direct competition with Major League Baseball. And they even tried to start their own Negro League,
Yes. Rival colored leagues.
a
Yes.
rival colored league, just to water it down, right? Water it
Yep.
down, make the competition uh, less competitive, because that's the truth. The Negro Leagues were just as good of baseball, if not better, than what was going on in Major League Baseball. And economically, they were making a pile of money off of it. And so, of
It was
course,
the
whenever
third largest all black industry in America at the
yeah.
time.
Well,
That's
it's
that
actually
is
kind of sad because the truth is once integration happened and all of these black players started playing Major League Baseball, it was a huge economic hit for these black
oh,
communities around Major League or around the United States.
instantly everyone wanted to see Jackie play in the majors. So
Of
it really
course.
did kill the Negro Leagues. And that's not like it's hard because you're talking about a league that had to die, but the league should have never existed in the first place. So it's like its origin is sad and its death are sad,
Yeah.
but its existence is so important, right? It had to exist. And yeah, it's like they had made another white owners had come in and paid more to African American players to come and try to jump leagues to rival leagues, and they would stay true to Rube. They would stay Kansas City Monarchs. They
Yeah.
would stay with like the teams that he had founded and built, and so that was just this beautiful moment of culture coming together and standing. Like that's truly the foundation of the civil rights movement. You know,
Truly.
like Martin Luther King even gives Jackie Robinson so much credit of growing up and seeing this man do something so incredibly important. And it's sport. It was sport that these changes in society were happening, right? Like not like the biggest moves to be able to bring everyone together under one single flag. Some of that came from baseball. So it's like
And
it's
dude,
absolute.
Josh Gibson is one of the greatest baseball players of all time, and so few people know who he is. Like now that these stats have been integrated, Josh Gibson is now the all-time single season record holder in batting average. 466 he hit one year. Like, just think about how absolutely insane that is. That eclipses Hugh Duffy. Slugging percentage of 974, eclipsing Barry Bonds. OPS of 1474, also eclipsing Barry Bonds. He also has the highest career batting average of 372, which now beats Ty Cobb, I should say, and slugging of 718, eclipsing Babe Ruth, and an OPS of 1177, also eclipsing Ruth. And
Now I'm honestly when it comes to this stuff, Scott, I'm my heart is so Negro Leagues. I love the Negro Leagues. Cool Papa
mhm,
Bell was
yeah,
probably my favorite player coming up. When I grew up and I heard stories of Cool Papa Bell was so fast that he could shut the light off in a room, get into bed and fall asleep before the light had dissipated from the room. Like that is myth. Like
yeah,
we're talking about Paul Bunyan-esque tales with Josh Gibson,
yes.
right? Josh Gibson borderlines a man who could chop down a tree with a single swing, right? That's the type of myth
I mean, he
and
had the same mythology behind him
Babe,
as a Babe Ruth. Absolutely.
absolutely. And there's there's this one part of me Okay. There's this one part of me, and it's a strange part, and a lot of people are probably going to disagree with me, but I feel like there's a part of me that says Major League Baseball isn't allowed to take that. Major League Baseball isn't allowed to go back in time and say, "Oh, you're a part of us now."
Yeah.
No, no, you said no. You said no over that time period. You said no over that time period, and that doesn't belong to you. That
Yeah.
is separate, and it's
It
separate.
definitely
It's
doesn't
equal.
validate the numbers. I will say that. Them integrating these stats doesn't validate shit. These numbers were incredibly impressive long before Major League Baseball decided that
Yeah,
they are valid.
yeah, and well, it's just my. I heard Jeff Passan say this one thing, and this is an intellectual argument for the other side of things, because I think that there is an other side argument that isn't fueled through racism at all,
Yeah, of course.
right? Because the idea that you can that Rube built a league to be separate but equal, and they were considered equal when they gained acceptance into the Hall of Fame, to say that you stand on equal standings with everyone who played here. But separate is important. The separate is important, and it means that it happened without you.
Mhm.
You did not make this happen. This is not your claim to fame. You cannot say that this is something that you did, or this is something that you can't be proud of. Because honestly, you were the antithesis of this.
Yes.
And you were, and we had to do this over here because you said no. So it's kind of this thing where I know overwhelmingly this is a great moment of inclusion, but at the same time, we can't look back at history and repaint it under this guise that everything was the same back then. No, because then you'll repeat it. We're doomed to repeat history in the future if we don't understand them. The mistakes and the failures have to be as important as the success, right? The reasons that they were segregated and put aside is just as important as a failure for Major League Baseball and a black eye. You can't just go back in time and cover up a black eye. That
Yeah.
black eye is there. You can't go back in time 80 years and put an umbrella over somebody's head who got dumped on in rain. It doesn't work. You dump that rain on. So there is this big part of me inside that says it's beautiful. And I really hope that it drastically increases knowledge for the Negro Leagues, and we learn about these players, and we learn about their history, and we learn about their struggles. But we also have to know that we as a society made a horrible mistake back then, and we can't
Mhm.
we can't we can't history can't repeat itself. So it's important to know history for what it was. And so that's kind of my one element on the other side of things, because I
Very
heard Jeff.
eloquently said. Very
Yeah.
eloquently said. And
and
it's
and
tough not to agree with that. Everyone in Grounds Crew, by the way, feel free to drop your comments here on your thoughts on this, and we'll try and tackle it in mailbag on Tuesday here. It is a heavy subject, but it's also very cool, and I really do hope that it brings new
yes.
eyes to what was accomplished in the Negro Leagues and some of the ball players and what
And
they did.
Passon said it great on Blair and Barker the other day, where the focal point shouldn't be trying to change the past. It should be trying to get more than 4.5% of African Americans into Major League Baseball here and now. So
Mhm.
hopefully that does that. Hopefully that allows African Americans to dive back into their past, relive and connect to all these players, and renew interest. And we
I mean,
see an
it is
influx
It
in the
is
game.
really wild to look back and know that in 1988, 23% of the league was African American, and now it's under 5.
It's just that's what has to change. And hopefully, if this leads to an influx of African American participation in baseball, then that's the best thing that could ever happen for this.
We'll leave it on that. Thank you so very much, Joel. Always appreciate you joining, my friend. We will see you Sunday for Long Toss. Can you make Sunday?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. Just a reminder to all of you watching to hit that like button and subscribe if you have not. It is, of course, truly appreciated. Long Toss will go from 6 till 8 Eastern on Sunday. So we'll see you all then. That'll be live on YouTube. And then, of course, Monday mailbag on a Tuesday afternoon. We'll see you all Tuesday. Take care of yourselves. Cheers.